Home builders are desperately trying to liquidate their inventory before the end of the year, creating some tremendous buying opportunities for you as a home buyer or a real estate investor out there. However, I have to warn you all, if you buy a newly built home or you own a home in a city or a neighborhood where home builders are going crazy, expect values to continue to crash over the next year because these home builders are on a price cut rampage right now, heavily discounting homes like this one in Austin, Texas, which was just cut by 15% down to less than $300,000. And as you zoom out on this map from where this home is, you can see tons and tons of newly built homes with price cuts. So this is the important thing to understand. Home builders have a lot of pricing power in the market. When they cut the price aggressively, that means values across the metro will go down aggressively. And in particular, we can see a state like Texas is most exposed here to these home builder price cuts. 40% of the listings in Texas more broadly are from a home builder, are new construction listings. So home builders in Texas, they're going crazy. Tons of inventory, tons of price cuts, as well as a state like Utah. In Utah, 43% of the listings come from home builders. While it's a similar story in North and South Carolina, also around 40%. And why it's so scary to buy a home built by a home builder or to live in a city where home builders are going crazy right now is because they are on a mission. They are on a mission to get rid of their inventory. Take a look at this article from The Real Deal talking about how spooked home builders are going to dump inventory by the end of the year. And they quote home builders in this article saying that the best time to buy a home will be in the next 3 months and that they're going to discount the heck out of them, which again is going to be great news for you as a home buyer. These builders are really starting to get aggressive in discounting the price. However, the problem is that these builders, they know something, right? They know that this housing crash is going to get worse, or else they wouldn't be doing this, right? Like if the builders thought that things would get better in early 2023, there would be no rush to get rid of the inventory. They would be okay with homes being completed and sitting in inventory on the market. But clearly they don't think that. They think the situation is going to get worse. And the reason these builders think the situation is going to get worse is because they're looking at their data. They're looking at home buyer traffic, which has now collapsed to the lowest level since the start of the 2008 housing crash. This is the number of people going and touring new construction homes. Data from the National Association of Home Builders, and you can see here it's down 61% year over year. I mean, that's an astronomical decline. So this collapse in home buyer traffic today means demand for buying homes in the next 3 months is going to drop by even more. But not only is this drop in demand freaking the builders out, we also have the drop in demand being combined with a huge glut in backlog of supply. As you can see, the yellow line, the number of homes actively under construction, that is now shot up to a near record level, over 830,000 single-family homes actively under construction in America. And you can see this tremendous gap between the supply and construction, and the demand indicates that this housing crash is going to get worse. We're going to have even more inventory piling onto the market, especially newly completed homes. And this is what the builders are seeing. And this is why they're getting so aggressive. So I would say this, if you're a home buyer or real estate investor, pay attention to what the builders are doing. There's some deals that are starting to be had. However, don't rush into it, because I think the deals are going to get even better in the beginning of 2023, especially in certain cities, everyone. Certain housing markets are really in the tank right now, and the inventory is just piling up, and it's not going to stop piling up. One of these markets I talked about earlier is Austin, Texas. Home builders are going crazy. The buyer demand is gone. Another market would be Boise, Idaho. This is one that the CEO of Lennar, the second largest home builder in America, identified as a housing market that they're having a lot of issues. In his last earnings call, the CEO of Lennar identified Boise as a quote-unquote category 3 market, which is a market where there's a significant softening and correction. Boise is one, Austin's one, Reno, Nevada is another. The whole state of Utah, Lennar is having issues in. Consistent viewers to my channel will no doubt recognize these cities as top housing crash markets. But interestingly, there's some other areas too. Philadelphia is showing a lot of weakness. So is the state of Minnesota, as well as the city of Pensacola on the Panhandle in Florida. So if you live in those cities, you might find some deals from home builders right now, but be careful because the values could continue to decline into the future, especially in those cities that home builders are very, very active. And if we go back to this map of the 50 states in America, looking at the share of inventory coming from new construction, you can see it's the states in red which have that highest share of home builder inventory and influence. We talked about Texas, Utah, North Carolina, South Carolina, but you can see there's some other states on this map in blue where the opposite is true. You go to California, or if you go to New York, or you go to Massachusetts, only around 10% of the listings in these states, according to Realtor.com, come from home builders and are new construction. And so if you live in a state with much less home building, these home builders aren't going to have as much of an influence on the housing market. So that's also something to think about. Understand how much home building, especially for single family homes, is occurring in your state and in your metro area, and how has that changed over time? That's really important to understand. And to give you guys more data on this, I'm going to do a rapid fire round over the next 2 minutes so you can understand how much home building is occurring in your market. What I'm going to do is compare cities against each other. For instance, take a look at this. We're comparing Dallas to Chicago in home building over the last 30 years. And this is a fascinating one because, folks, you can see up until like the mid 2000s, Dallas and Chicago were building roughly a similar number of single family homes. However, after that last housing crash, building in Chicago collapsed and has never recovered. Only around 8,800 permits in Chicago for homes over the last 12 months. Well, Dallas has rebounded back to around 50,000, almost 6 times higher than that of Chicago. How about this next comparison, which is amazing? Boston versus Nashville. Once again, you can see all the way up until the mid-2000s, Boston built more single-family homes than Nashville. They both crashed in terms of building in 2010, 2011, but since then, Nashville has rocketed up to 16,000 permits over the last 12 months, while Boston's only at 4,000. So Nashville building 4 times as many homes as Boston, despite being half the size as a metro area. How about San Francisco versus San Antonio? Once again, San Francisco was building way more than San Antonio all the way from the late 80s to the mid 2000s. And San Antonio, despite being half the size of San Francisco, is building 3 times as many single family homes. And lastly, this is my favorite comparison of them all, everyone, these differences in home building and home builder influence. What about New York versus Austin, Texas? And if we go back to the 90s and 2000s, we can see the New York Metro was building roughly 3 to 4 times more than the Austin, Texas metro area. And then they built roughly the same amount from 06 to 2014. But since 2014, 2015, Austin's single family building has rocketed up to double the level of the New York Metro. Even though Austin is 9 times smaller than New York, it is building double the amount of single family homes. And what's really crazy, everyone, about these cities where the home builders have gone nuts over the last couple of years is that there's just going to be a structural increase in inventory flowing onto these housing markets. Prices will just continue to go down because you got to think about the psychology of a home builder right now. They're saying to themselves, build the home, get rid of the home, cut the price as much as you need to, as long as we make a small profit. And that psychology is going to drag home prices down in these cities and neighborhoods. And it's really going to screw over a lot of the existing homeowners, especially the sellers who are waiting to sell until the spring in 2023. If you're waiting to sell in a market where there's lots of home building, you are making a big mistake, because all you're doing is allowing the builders to just flood the market with more inventory and cut the price even further before you decide to list. Because again, the backlog of homes under construction, 830,000, that's a near record high, almost as high as it was at the peak of the 2006 bubble. So even though we've seen builders start to reduce permits and starts for single family homes, those permits and starts are still above their pre-pandemic level, and we still have this big backlog to work through. So we're going to continue to see home builder inventory flood the market. And one thing that I think is super interesting about this, everyone, if you're someone especially who's interested in the stock market, you should pay attention to this, is that even though these builders are aggressively cutting prices and have really horrible demand right now, their stock prices are doing actually pretty well. Like D.R. Horton, the largest home builder in America, they're trading at $72 a share right now. When the last time builder buyer traffic was this low, D.R. Horton was trading at $18 a share. So I think we could also still be in a home builder stock bubble where these home builder stocks end up taking a big hit over the next 6 months. I have some put options right now on D.R. Horton Lennar, predicting that their stock price is going to go lower. I'm going to probably buy some more, given that their stocks have rebounded over the last couple days. Now, one final thing we need to discuss, everyone, is actually a positive for home builders and home buyers. There's something occurring in the home building market right now that's a good thing for all parties involved, and that's the fact that the cost of building a home is starting to go down and go down by a lot. Lumber prices have crashed down close to their pre-pandemic level of around $450 to $500 per 1,000 board feet, and that's reducing construction costs for builders, which is also making them more willing to cut the price for buyers. In addition, due to the decline in permits and housing starts that we've seen, builders now don't have nearly as much of a labor shortage as they used to. They keep quoting this phrase that the building cycle time is improving, which means that no longer is it taking builders 15 months to complete a home. Now it's taking something like 7 to 9 months to complete a house. Now, before signing off, I have a message to my viewers out there, particularly my long-term viewers. You probably remember 6 to 8 months ago, I did some videos predicting the issues that home builders would have and how they would crash the market. For instance, I did a video in February on the 10 cities that home builders were going to crash because they were building too many homes. Then in April, I did a video predicting that there'd be a huge surge in contract cancellations for home builders based off the increase in mortgage rates. And I came out with those videos 6 to 8 months ago when no one in the real estate mainstream was predicting issues for the housing market or home builders. And the reason I was able to see what's happening today 6 to 8 months ago is because I looked at the data on housing permits from the US Census Bureau on how many permits were being pulled by builders versus how many jobs were being added and what home prices looked like. And that same data today is telling me that the crash is going to continue to get worse. So if you're someone who appreciates this data-driven approach, especially looking back at data through time on different housing markets, make sure you're a subscriber to this channel. Hit that subscribe button, because I will continue to deliver to you all this data-driven content as the housing crash unfolds so you can make a better decision about when and where to buy a house.